A monk in ancient India could sit motionless for hours while his body screamed for movement. A Spartan boy could walk through freezing rain without flinching. A Stoic philosopher could lose everything he owned and still sleep peacefully that night. None of them had ever heard of dopamine, cortisol, or neuroscience. So how did they build minds stronger than most people today? That question should bother you more than it does. Because right now, in the age of therapy, self-help books, and behavioral science, most people still struggle to resist a phone notification. Yet civilizations with zero understanding of the brain somehow mastered self-control at a level modern psychology is still trying to explain. So what did they know that we don't? Let's rewind to a basic question first. What actually is willpower? For most of history, nobody agreed. Ancient Egyptians believed the heart controlled judgment and self-restraint. Greek philosophers believed the soul was locked in a constant battle with the body. There was no concept of a prefrontal cortex, no fMRI scans, no data. And yet somehow, these cultures built systems of discipline so effective that some are still used today, unchanged, thousands of years later. Take the Stoics of ancient Greece and Rome. One of their most influential teachers, Epictetus, spent part of his life enslaved before becoming an advisor to emperors. His core idea sounds deceptively simple. It's not the event that disturbs you, it's your judgment about the event. Pain doesn't control you. Your interpretation of pain does. That idea sat quietly in philosophy books for 2,000 years. Then, in 2010, researchers publishing in the journal Psychological Science decided to test it. They placed people under high-pressure conditions and split them into two groups. One group was told to suppress their anxiety. The other was told to reinterpret their racing heartbeat as the body preparing for peak performance, not as fear. The second group didn't just feel calmer, they performed measurably better. An idea from a former slave in the 1st century had just been validated in a modern psychology lab. But here's where things get strange. If reframing your thoughts was the secret, every ancient culture should have discovered the same trick. They didn't. On the other side of the world, Buddhist monks were solving the exact same problem using a completely different method, not through mindset, but through environment. Monastic life, developed over 2,000 years ago, was built on rigid structure. Fixed wake times. Fixed meals, minimal possessions, physical distance from anything that could trigger craving. Monks weren't relying on raw mental force to resist temptation, they were removing the need to resist it at all. That idea also went untested for centuries. Then, in 1998, psychologist Roy Baumeister ran an experiment that reshaped how we understand discipline. Participants were asked to resist eating freshly baked cookies sitting right in front of them. Afterward, they performed significantly worse on an unrelated task, requiring focus than participants who hadn't been tested at all. His conclusion was simple but radical. Willpower behaves like a limited resource. It drains with use. It isn't a fixed trait you either have or don't. Ancient monks had already built an entire way of life around that exact principle, without ever measuring it in a lab. They didn't need data, they had centuries of quiet observation. But that raises a bigger question. If willpower runs out, how did ancient warriors endure things that would break most humans alive today? Starvation, freezing cold, days without sleep, physical pain most of us will never experience even once. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Consider Spartan military training, one of the harshest discipline systems in recorded history. Spartan boys weren't simply told to endure hardship. From early childhood, their identity was built around endurance itself. Suffering wasn't something to resist. It was proof of who they already were. Pain didn't threaten their sense of self, it confirmed it. Modern psychologists now call this identity-based motivation, and research shows it's one of the strongest predictors of long-term discipline, far more powerful than fear or willpower in the moment. when self-control becomes part of your identity instead of a battle against your own desires. Resistance stops feeling like effort. It becomes automatic. Then, everything starts to connect. Egyptian priests removed the need for willpower through fixed ritual. Greek philosophers changed the meaning of pain itself. Buddhist monks eliminated temptation before it could arise. Spartan warriors built an identity so strong that suffering became evidence of strength instead of a threat to it. 4 civilizations. 4 completely different methods, all converging on the same hidden truth. Self-control was never about forcing yourself to try harder. It was about designing a life where trying harder was rarely necessary at all. And that should genuinely unsettle you. Modern culture treats a lack of discipline as a personal failure. The advice is almost always the same: want it more. Push through, try harder. But ancient civilizations discovered something we've quietly forgotten. Willpower isn't a resource you summon through sheer force in the moment of temptation. It's something you build in advance, through environment, identity, and belief, long before temptation ever shows up. We've built faster technology, bigger cities, more comfort than any civilization in history. And somewhere along the way, we lost the one skill ancient people mastered, using nothing but structure and belief. So maybe the real question isn't how ancient people controlled their willpower. Maybe it's why we ever convinced ourselves that willpower was supposed to work without any structure behind it at all.